Chapter 11. It's Friday, Hollis said. I noticed, DeMarco said. She glared at him for a moment, then dropped it and sighed. I know. We'd be back at Quantico by now, or on the jet heading for a real case, if I could just do what I came to do and make contact with Daniel for Anna. I wonder. You do? Why? DeMarco stopped and stood looking around yet another wide hallway that was dark despite the lights and the sheet-draped furniture. They were, with the permission of their hostess, exploring the wing of the house normally closed except when this was a hotel. They had looked just about everywhere for the spirit of Daniel Alexander, and Hollis had suggested this more out of desperation than any real hope of encountering the man's elusive self. Reese, is it the same here as everywhere else? If you mean the spirits, yes. Not that many, but during the day in a hallway of bedrooms and suites, I wouldn't expect many. Anybody stand out? Hollis looked around, by now more baffled than creeped out by what she saw. Not really. Mostly maids cleaning the rooms, more than you'd see in your average luxury hotel in a single hallway, but I imagine part of the extra deluxe service here is not walking into your room at 2 in the afternoon and discovering the maid hasn't gotten there yet. DeMarco didn't frown often, but he did then, like everywhere else, from different times. She took a closer look. Yeah, I think so. Wait, definitely. The maid uniform stayed pretty much the same over the years, apparently, but the hemlines go up and down, and so do the sleeves and collars. Apparently musing aloud, DeMarco said, lots of servants, lots of guests, lots of family members you've matched to various portraits and photos Anna let us go through, but no Daniel. Yeah, I don't get it. He should be here. He lived his whole life here. He died here. Where else would he be? Maybe he moved on. I wish I believed that. I'd tell Anna and we could get out of here, but I don't think so, Reese. Why not? He was looking at her now intently. I don't know, just a feeling. Sometimes I think if I only turned my head fast enough, I'd see him. As if he's deliberately staying out of your sightline? It was Hollis's turn to frown. Maybe, but why would he? Maybe that's what we should be asking ourselves. Not why you're seeing so many spirits, but why you aren't seeing the one you're looking for. She resisted the urge to clutch at her hair. Geez, that sounds like a cosmic riddle. I hate riddles. They're like those math problems with 2 trains leaving a station. You didn't like the trains, I take it. Kept seeing them crash, no matter how I worked the math. My trains always crashed into each other. Hollis stared at her partner and added, You're trying not to laugh. Sorry. Crashing trains aren't funny. People and animals die. DeMarco blinked. Animals? Circus trains? My trains are always circus trains. He cleared his throat, but his question still sounded a bit unsteady. Why? I don't know. They just are. Hollis refused to laugh, even though she was beginning to feel the need to. So in your math problems, the imaginary trains are circus trains? Yes. Your way of making the exercise interesting? I guess. She thought about it. It means more to get it right. So the people and animals don't die? Well, it wouldn't mean as much with freight cars. A mess, I suppose, and maybe fire or a chemical spill or something like that. She thought about it some more and felt a flicker of concern. Yeah, I wouldn't want a chemical spill. Almost as bad as circus cars. Bad enough. DeMarco cleared his throat again. You're really tired, aren't you? She actually had to think about that, which pretty much answered his question. Yeah, I am. Why am I? Other than walking around the place and talking, it's not like I've done anything to get tired. Gosh knows I've eaten enough for fuel. Opening a door for spirits takes a lot out of you. But I haven't, Hollis said slowly, only then realizing. Not since the other night with Jamie Bell and her message to Owen. Not since Brooke warned me to be careful. All these spirits, and you never opened the door once? She shook her head. No. I mean, they were here already. I felt them almost from the first. And after the next morning, they were all around me, and I could see them. After you opened the door for Jamie. Again, slowly this time, Hollis shook her head. I didn't consciously open the door for her. I was irritated by Owen, and she was just there. You weren't in control. No. Hollis had lost all desire to laugh. But you were tired afterward. He paused, then added, drained, really. Much more so than usual for you. I thought it was just the long travel day topped off by Owen's attitude and then Jamie Bell. But the combination took more out of you than usual. I thought so too. Reese took her hand and turned to retrace their steps to the main part of the house. I think we need to call Bishop, he said. Hollis was surprised. It's not like you want to check with the boss about anything short of a crisis, she said. I'm beginning to think we're in the middle of one, he said, rather grim now. Because I see all these spirits? Because you aren't in control and see all the spirits? Damn it, I was so busy thinking about what you were seeing that I missed the signs I should have been seeing. Signs of what? Signs of a vortex. They're rare, Bishop said. Are you sure? It's the only thing that makes any kind of sense, DeMarco replied. The phone in the foyer had no speaker, and there was no extension nearby. Hollis was sitting on the foyer table, both because she was tired and because she was better able to comfortably share the phone's handset with her partner. Spirits everywhere, Bishop, she told their unit chief. I didn't let them in. Even trying to contact Daniel Alexander, I haven't really been doing anything except looking for him in the crowd. I didn't realize that's what I was doing until Reese made me see. DeMarco said old house, remote location, down in a valley with a hell of a lot of granite all around us, and at least a dozen old mine shafts in the area, radiating out like spokes on a wheel, some on the maps and some not. The family's been here a long time, much longer than this house, and the history they had printed mentions that before the house was built, there was almost a small town here, even had a church at the other end of the valley, complete with graveyard. The church isn't there now? No, gone before this house was built. There's internet access via a satellite dish, so I was able to do a search, even if it was slow as hell. Seems there was a very wet winter followed by an unusually rainy spring one year, and the result was one hell of a mudslide. In fact, witnesses reported that it looked like half the mountain slid down into the valley. Trees, boulders, everything. Took out the church, covered the graveyard in mud and debris so deep, no one even suggested they try to uncover the graves. Before the mudslide, this valley was a mile longer than it is now. Hollis said, but it was so long ago, you can't really see any evidence of a mudslide. I mean, a geologist probably could, but not us. There are trees growing down at that end of the valley, big ones. I mean, over 100 years, mighty oaks can grow. She felt more than saw DeMarco give her a look and added to Bishop, but isn't a vortex some kind of whirlpool? In water, yes. In this case, it would be a whirlpool of energy, spiritual energy. And nobody saw all the spirits until I got here, but I didn't do anything, seriously. You're a powerful medium, Hollis. You see auras, you can heal. And if what Reese described is accurate, you can do what only one other psychic I've ever known can do. Look into time. See pieces of the past, maybe the future as well. All that indicates tremendous power, and that power is attracting what was spiritual energy that was probably a lot more diffuse, unfocused before you arrived. Alice began to rub her forehead. She had a headache. Please don't tell me I'm precognitive. That's one psychic tool I definitely do not want. No, this is something else entirely. What is it? Bishop sounded unusually tense. It doesn't really have a name. Hollis, you're rewriting the book when it comes to psychic development. All I know for sure is that given the right place, the right physical conditions, and the right circumstances, your presence alone could become a focal point for energies, and not just spiritual energies, but other kinds as well. Hollis was almost afraid to ask. She was afraid to ask. DeMarco did it. For instance, that depends on what's on the other side of the vortex. Hollis, these spirits have auras? When I concentrate and look for them, yeah. Why? Auras that vary in intensity and color, as they do with living people? She had to think about that, and it made her head hurt more. Now that you mention it, I don't see a whole lot of variety, and the glow was fainter. Colors? Dark, and not really colors. I mean, not black, but just dark. I thought it was just the house, but even outside when I saw them, the auras were dark. What the hell does that mean? Even as she asked, Hollis had the strong suspicion that Bishop knew these answers, had been expecting the questions, and knew a hell of a lot more about what was going on than he had so far revealed, which was something she should have been used to by now. "It means we're leaving," DeMarco said. "No," Bishop told him. "That's the last thing you should do." "Oh yeah, he knows stuff, damn it." "Bishop, she's getting weaker. Just in the last hour, I've almost seen the energy draining from her." "Isn't that wrong?" Hollis asked, pushing her mad aside for later and trying her best to think clearly. "I mean, if I'm at the center of this, shouldn't I be getting stronger?" "You didn't open the door, Hollis. Right now, all that energy is rushing around you, pulling at you. You aren't in control." "That's what Reese said. And it's what you have to change." "Brooke said to be careful." And then vanished. I thought she was going to help. Why isn't she helping? She was right. This energy is very powerful, and you'll feel the pull of it trying to draw you toward the center more and more, especially once you start. You'll need an anchor, a lifeline, and that's Reese. You know the drill, physical contact, and be very sure that isn't broken. For the duration, Hollis. She thought fleetingly of the possibility of more nights spent here, from now on, with the necessity of constant physical contact between her and DeMarco. Kind of shotgun wedding. "Oh, great, that's just great. Can I do anything in my life normally?" Bishop asked, "Where do you see the most spirits?" Hollis hauled her wayward thoughts back into line and realized she didn't really have to think about that. Inside the house, outside, close to the house. The farther away, the fewer spirits. Out at the barn complex, I didn't see any. At least I don't think I did. Fewer spirits upstairs than on the main floor? Now that I think about it, yes. You haven't been in the basement? No, DeMarco answered. It's a huge house. We haven't explored the basement or the attic. The center of the vortex is likely to be below ground level, so I'm guessing the basement. There aren't only mine shafts in the area. There are unexplored caves as well, and some of them run for miles underground, originally formed by prehistoric rivers. They would provide a natural geological opening for that side of the vortex, and a physical channel for the energy as it moves. The true center has to be somewhere in the basement, and I'm betting you'll find either a sunken place in the basement floor, or else an actual door, perhaps leading down into a cave the builders or original owners had a use for. Bishop, you'll need to stay away from the center of the vortex when you open the first doors. It's what's draining your energy now. Wait, I have to open and then close more than one door? It's necessary to divert some of the energy and weaken the vortex before you close the final door. There are 5 specific doorways: north, south, east, and west, then center. Center has to be the last one you face, and that one you don't try to open wider. That one you have to close and seal. What? Bishop, this whole thing sounds... Hollis, with everything you've seen, everything you've experienced, why does this seem so unbelievable to you? She didn't know. She really didn't. I'm just tired. Tell me what to do so I can fix that, will you? With uncharacteristic promptness, Bishop told her exactly what she had to do. Luther wasn't sure how badly Callie was wounded until he got her quilted jacket off, and by then, the small hole just below her left collarbone wasn't terribly reassuring, because he knew she had lost a lot of blood. There was an exit wound almost identical to the entrance wound in her back, slightly lower than the entrance wound, which she automatically noted as evidence that the shooter had been on higher ground, or on his feet while Callie had been crouched or kneeling, something like that. He pushed all that aside for the moment because Callie was his first priority, and he was not happy that she had been forced to use far too many of her first aid supplies earlier fetching him up. He used a clean bath towel, folded over her shoulder, using both hands to put pressure on the entrance and exit wounds, and stanched the bleeding. Through and through, she murmured. At least you won't have to dig for a bullet. Lucky you. His voice was grim. What the hell happened? Wrong assumption, remember? She was watching him, half lying on the couch, slightly propped up as he had been only a few days before. Her jacket was lying in a heap on the floor nearby, and he had exposed the wound in her shoulder by simply tearing her sweatshirt open from the collar down her arm and through the left wristband. Didn't hear any gunshots, he said. That's because the bastard didn't use a gun. He used a bow. Probably a compound bow to have so much power. And an arrow with a blunt end, forget what they're called, meant to go all the way through game animals like deer or elk, pierce vital organs without doing much damage to the hide. Jesus, what? He used up all his ammo shooting at me? Maybe so. Doubt he expected to do so much shooting if the plan was to lay low. Hell, maybe I just caught him starting out on a hunting trip. She sucked in a breath, the first real sign of pain, then said, "Hey, when you get me to stop bleeding like a stuck pig, get Caesar cleaned up, will you? He just about carried me back here." Luther glanced over his shoulder to see the Rottweiler sitting near Callie's jacket, his gaze intent on his mistress, whose blood definitely stained his normally glossy coat. The other 3 dogs were still and quiet, not quite as tense as before, but not relaxed. Probably the smell of blood, he thought. "I will, don't worry, just try to stay still." "He tried to warn me," she murmured. "Caesar." He was bothered, but didn't seem to know why, just anxious. "I wanted to come back here, but I had to see that blood again. And you were right. I swear, the bastard had me in his sights. I didn't see him." Caesar was worried, and I sort of leaned over just a bit to touch him. That's when I got hit. If I'd been standing straight, the arrow probably would have gone through her heart. "No warning shot this time," Luther said. "He meant to kill you." "Yeah. What about the energy?" "I could feel it. I'm almost positive it's in him. Maybe is him, whatever he is now." "You felt it through your shield?" Callie nodded. "Pressure and something dark. Weird to feel something dark, but that's how it felt. I pulled the arrow out, knew it hadn't hit anything vital, and hard to stay low and move with the damn thing sticking through me. I held on to Caesar and stayed low, let him guide me. Hell, almost carry me." "Do you think Jacoby followed you?" "I think he's not done. Better get me patched up as soon as you can." "He's not going to put an arrow through this cabin," Luther said with a nod toward walls constructed of actual logs. "Only 2 small windows, and those are curtained, plus blocked from most angles by the roof over the porch. No shot." "He could burn us out," Callie said, "if all he wanted was the 2 of us dead. But that's not what he wants, what it wants." "You sense more even with your shield up?" "Yeah. Hunger. For strength, for power. Negative energy takes. Remember, it takes. This thing takes more than memories." "Callie, your abilities have more power than you know, Luther. But it knows it got a taste earlier, and it wants more." "More?" "Its plan, its endgame. I don't know what that is, but I know there's a goal, and it needs your strength and power to reach that goal." The memory of coming back to himself holding a knife to Callie's throat was enough to spur Luther, but all he said was, "Listen, I know some rough and ready first aid, but nothing close to your skills. All I want to do is get the bleeding stopped, pack the wound and bandage it securely, do what we can to ward off shock, and get you to a real doctor as fast as I possibly can." She leaned her head back against the pillow. "It's a long hike off this mountain. It's a shorter one to Jacoby's cabin and his truck. If there's any reason in that thing, any ability to think about tactics, and with a goal it has to have that, it'll know I'm wounded, you're not fully recovered, and Jacoby is probably the one who disabled my Jeep before he totally lost control, before the dark energy became so palpable. I think he could have gotten that close without us knowing, without even Caesar knowing." She caught her breath, clearly in pain, then added, "It's narrowed our options. It maybe set a trap, yet the thought had occurred." He checked her wounds, still bleeding, but sluggishly now. Time to do what he could to dress the wounds so that Callie could be moved. It made his stomach drop to realize he could do something to make her condition even worse. But he had been on too many battlefields not to be a realist. Do the best you can and move on. Survive. Still watching him, Callie said, "Either way, we'll have to get past him or go through him. I'm not picky." "He got in your head before? What makes you think he won't do it again the first chance he gets?" "'Cause this time I have an edge," Luther said. "What?" This time I know what he can do, and I'm ready for him. Do you understand? Bishop asked. It was DeMarco who replied, his voice almost as impassive as it usually was with most people. We understand, Bishop. Not so sure I do. Hollis's voice was fainter over the speaker in the conference room, as if she were a bit farther away from the phone on their end. I mean, concentrating on closing a door the way I concentrate on opening one, I think. I visualize an actual door and then see myself opening it or closing it. But I don't understand why the 4 points have to be open and then closed before we can do what we're supposed to at the center, just to release some energy and then narrow access to it all. In part, you also need to replenish your own energy, and once you're away from the center and can channel some energy from the other doorways, you'll accomplish 2 goals, closing down everything but the center and gaining enough strength to seal the vortex permanently, Bishop replied. Am I going to hate this? Before Bishop could answer, DeMarco said, channeling so much energy when her abilities are unstable. Bishop, have you lost your mind? If I'm right, it could go a long way towards stabilizing Hollis's abilities, which is an opportunity she never had before. And if you're wrong, I'm not. Hollis, you'll have to be at the center of the vortex, and for you to be effective, that vortex has to be a manageable size, not spread out over 30 acres or more. Okay, but where is the energy coming from, Bishop? I know Reese talked about the geography of this place, but isn't a vortex a bit like a black hole? Not with gravity, but like you said, basically a huge doorway. I mean, it has 2 sides, right? We have energy swirling here, but at the center it has to be going somewhere, coming from somewhere else, doesn't it? Oh shit, don't tell me it goes through Diana's gray time. Considering the tension and even urgency he had uncharacteristically used at the beginning of this phone call, Bishop's voice was calm now. No, this is a different kind of doorway. Geography helped form it on both ends, and for decades, maybe for centuries, it remained stable. On your side, spirits not ready to move on, or too weak to completely fight the natural pull of the vortex to remain there, stayed. Held hostage by force they had no way to fight. And on the other side, DeMarco asked. It's all about balance. The other side is negative energy, dark energy, and for a long time it was confined to a very small area, until DeMarco's voice held the tone of a man who intended to get his questions answered. Just as on your side of the vortex, the right or wrong person arrived at a certain location with a certain set of abilities, he was drawn there unconsciously long before now, led there. He thought it would be a safe haven for later, when he knew he'd need one. Only his mind is too weak to fight what he found waiting there for him when he returned. It was already open and receptive to the dark energy, and now it's got him. It's got a vessel, and it needs to grow stronger, and to do that, it needs to produce more dark energy. How? Hollis asked, not sure she wanted to know. The only way negative energy can be produced by evil acts. Luther had wondered absently whether Jacoby's dogs would be willing to leave the cabin, especially if they had run from whatever now completely ruled their former master. But when he had Callie on the litter that was harnessed to Caesar, the dogs rose from their beds and came to join them near the front door. Easy, guys, Callie murmured, just stick close. Think they understand you? I know they do. Still pale but curiously serene, she looked up at him with an odd little smile. It's one of my things. Somehow that didn't surprise him. So, you're a true dog whisperer, able to communicate with them on a psychic level. Not just dogs, she said, some other animals too. Clear as with Caesar after years of practice. Luther, Cole Jacoby is gone, and the thing that looks like him is very, very powerful. You're a new telepath with a crack shield, and it wants your power. Just how do you expect to be able to get past him? Because I trust you don't mean to fight him? Luther checked his weapon for about the 3rd time, stalling because he still wasn't at all sure how he would be able to do anything to fight all the negative energy surrounding what had been Colt Jacoby. He wasn't even sure he could shield his own mind from the negative effects of being anywhere near it, except that he had never before in his life felt anything as powerful as the absolute determination to make damn sure he wouldn't be used to hurt Callie in any way. Not again. And just to help guard against that, both his big hunting knife and her gun were within her easy reach on the litter. He didn't dare give up his own gun, but the promise that he would only use it against Jacoby was like a mantra in his head. When he finally holstered his weapon and looked at her, he was safe from having to reply at all. She was staring straight ahead at the still closed door, her very dark eyes oddly fixed, a tiny frown between her brows. Luther wasn't exactly sure how he knew that to pull her focus would be a mistake, but it was another thing he was absolutely certain of. So he merely waited, watching her, noting without really thinking about it that all the dogs were watching her as well, clearly not disturbed, but intent. It felt to him like forever, but was probably no more than 2 or 3 minutes before she blinked and shook her head, as if throwing off a dizzy spell of some kind. "Son of a bitch," she muttered. "I wonder how long he's known he could do that if he had to." "Do what?" Luther asked. "And who?" "Reach me telepathically, with my shields up." Her tone was even, but there was an edge to it. "Bishop." "What, he got through just now?" "Yeah." "And?" Callie checked her watch, tapped it with a frown, and cursed absently since it was clearly stopped, then said calmly, "We need to wait about 5 minutes before we head out." "Why?" "Because I'm told whatever's controlling Jacoby is about to be distracted in a very big way, and should give us a window to get to his Jeep and get the hell off this mountain." "What kind of distraction?" "The kind only Bishop could orchestrate."